Hello, and welcome back to the Dream Life Diaries podcast. I'm your host here, McKenna, and this is the show all about envisioning and creating the dream life that you deserve. Here we talk all about mindset, motivation, manifestation, going against the grain in life, and taking big action steps towards actually living the life you've always envisioned for yourself. If you're a new listener to the show, I am so excited to have you here. Just the fact that you clicked on this episode to listen to today means you're taking those steps or starting to think about taking big steps towards really living a life that fulfills you and lifts you up. So I'm so excited to have you here. And if you're a returning listener to the show, I am so blessed and grateful for you guys every single week for coming back to listen every Wednesday. So thanks again for tuning into the next episode here. We have a big one today, and I am so excited to dive right into it. Before I jump right into the show, I just have to make a quick point here. It is allergy season, and I don't know if it's so bad all across the country or if it's really just so bad where I'm at in the southeast here, but it is brutal. So if I sound like honestly super stuffy and gross, I totally apologize for that. I actually took some Claritin before getting into studio mode today. Hopefully that'll be kicking in within the next 20 minutes or so, but we can only hope. I'm actually so curious whether the pollen and allergies are so bad right now where you guys are. So let me know if you are suffering as well, or if this is just a Charleston Southeast thing. I know the North probably gets pollen season a little bit later because right now it's still only March. So I feel like stuff in Charleston blooms a lot sooner than some other places. Honestly, here stuff is blooming all year round. So it's kind of always allergy season in a sense. So drop a comment below if you're listening on Spotify or YouTube because I would love to hear A, where you guys are listening in from, and B, whether allergy season has hit your area yet. Because like I said, it's been a little rough here for everybody. So I'm just so curious. But with that, let's dive right into it today, guys. We are going to be talking all about rejection being redirection. And this is a pretty personal topic for me this time around. And I'm so excited I get the opportunity to be able to bring this onto the show because I just faced a big form of rejection recently. And I have been trying to really see that as a form of redirection. And in my gut, I truly believe that that is a form of redirection for me. So I am trying to take that as I will and use my own guidance I love to share with you guys to kind of work through this sense of rejection myself. And I'm excited to dive into it today and hopefully peel out some things that I've learned along the way of going through rejection and going through that process and how I frame a mindset around seeing that as redirection and as a positive movement into something bigger and better and what's next to come in life. So off the bat, when it comes to rejection, we've all been there once in our life, at least. And whether it's a job, a relationship, an opportunity you really wanted, hearing no can feel honestly like a punch in the gut. I feel like there's no really better way to describe it as, that feeling when your stomach just drops and you feel like somebody literally just punched you. But I've liked to think about what if rejection wasn't actually a dead end, but a detour to something even better. There's definitely been at least a good handful of times in our lives where there's an opportunity that we really wanted and we got told no or didn't make it to the final cut, the final list. There's so many ways to be rejected in life, unfortunately. And I think there are so many of these opportunities in life where there is a huge chance of being rejected or not making it. Obviously, it sucks to be told no. It sucks to not get what it is that you wanted so bad. You know it doesn't feel good to be told no. But I think in these circumstances especially, we know that there is that chance of rejection. We know that there is a good chance that we could come out of this experience and get that punched in the gut feeling, get that awful feeling of being told no or being told that you didn't make it. So why do we put ourselves in these situations? Why do we even set ourselves up for the possibility of failure? Well, right off the bat, we put ourselves in these positions because the possible outcome of achieving what it is that we are setting ourselves up for, that possible chance of being told yes, of making it to the final round, the final cut, of getting that job, making it to that final shortlist. The possibility of getting to that outcome outweighs the negative aspect of being told no. That possibility on the other side, the dream conclusion, the possibility of getting that totally outweighs all of the work they have to put in to get there, the possibility of being told no and being rejected. So that's why we set ourselves up for these situations. And I think that's such a great way to go into this episode, is knowing that, we don't just set ourselves up for the possibility of failure for fun. We don't do it for shits and giggles. We do it because there is a potential opportunity there that has so much potential that it makes it okay to set yourself up for that possible letdown. But I think it's really easy to say that being rejected can be one of the worst feelings to go through. I think there's times when we are rejected from something maybe small, maybe it was a long shot that we just set ourselves up for and we didn't have too much emotional investment into it. But there are so many times where we put in so much work and get turned down. There are times when you meticulously put together a job application and a cover letter and pulled in some resources, some references, and put in so many hours into a job application or into an interview process, and you get told no. Thinking back to good old days in high school or college when there might be people in theater or in plays, there are people that go through hours and hours of learning scripts, of learning songs and learning lines, and they go and audition for a part in a play and they don't make it even after putting in all that work. And I think those times are the hardest, is when you put in the effort and you deserve the outcome you want because you put in the work and you still get told no. I think that describes one of the worst feelings in life, honestly. And the best way that I always describe it as the feeling of the rug being pulled out from under you when those situations arise, because it feels like you just fall flat on your butt. For lack of a better description there, it really just feels like you kind of fall down, you crumple, and you're like, dang, I put in so much work for what? And now I'm here. I didn't get the opportunity I wanted. And well, guess life sucks. And in these situations, it's okay to say that it sucks. It does suck. But when you're told no, and when you are rejected, especially in these situations, it's more than just the rejection that's getting you down. It's more than just being told no. That's the hard part. I think we as human beings, we can handle being told no, especially to a certain point. We could handle being told no. A lot of times we go into these situations and we work so hard for a specific outcome and we build so much around this idea. In these situations, it's not just a rejection of something that you were working so hard for. It's also a rejection of all that you've built up around that idea, that conclusion as well. When we're working for a specific outcome, we build up around it the idea of what our life would look like if that opportunity were to be given to us as well. If we're working for a promotion, it's not just about the promotion. It's about, okay, well, if I get this promotion, I'm going to be getting more money. And then you're thinking about the life that you'd be living if you had more money, if you had a different role at work. You're thinking about the day-to-day life that would coincide with getting the opportunity that you wanted. You might think about, okay, I'll get this promotion and then I can get a better car. I could get that new apartment I've been working for. Maybe I could have more money to support my family. I could live a different lifestyle. I could go into work and actually have a role that I love. So my day-to-day life is going to be so much better. My mood's going to be better. My, emotions are going to be better. I'm going to be less stressed if I get this. And the list could go on and on. There are so many life things that get pulled into and attached to this outcome. I also think, let's say it's about a relationship. If you get rejected in a relationship, it's not just getting rejected by that person. Obviously that sucks. Sucks so much that you got rejected when, you were really into somebody or really into a relationship. But it's more than that. Them rejecting you is also that rejection of the life that you plan to live with them. Maybe that was the person you thought you were going to marry, and them rejecting you is now crumpling the life that you expected after marriage, having kids with them, maybe getting a house in the future. It's more than just a simple rejection from them. So when we talk about rejection and we frame this idea, it's really important to think about those things as well. We sometimes really try and play down our emotions and think, oh, well, I shouldn't be so butthurt about being told no about this. I didn't know if it was a sure conclusion. It was never 100%. But I think it's so okay to be upset about that. We have a reason to be upset about that. As we just dove into, there's so much that we built up to getting the conclusion that we wanted in these situations. So I think it's really important to validate everything that we're losing if we are facing one of these forms of rejection. It's okay to be upset about it because it's more than just being told no about something, In these situations, we are losing more than just a simple opportunity. We're losing a lifestyle that we thought we'd be living if we got the outcome that we wanted. And I think this idea really ties in super well with the personal experience I've had with rejection just a few weeks ago. So starting a few months back, I started working towards this promotion at work, which once again is one of those things where it wasn't 100%. You can never actually totally, you can never completely be confident in getting a promotion, I feel like. People could promise you things and you just never know. So I went into it initially with a very open mindset, and I went into it framing it like, okay, if this happens, great. If not, you know what? I shot my shot and I gave it, I gave it my best. However, as I went along through the process of applying for this promotion, and I put in, a lot of effort into it, but my colleagues, my managers and everything, they really made it so sure that I was going to get it. And of course, that obviously built up the confidence in me. I was like, okay, actually, I have this and it's pretty much already mine. And it got to the point where I was so sure of getting it. I mean, I went through the interview, went great. I submitted a very good resume. I pulled in all of the, KPIs and the data I need to in my resume. And I made it, pretty impressive. And I definitely put my best foot forward into this and really tried my absolute best to stand out and, do my best to make this basically a shoe-in opportunity. And pretty much I just took all the steps I possibly could to make myself shine out as an applicant and to make this as sure of a possibility as, in my ability at the time. So like I was saying, it was one of those things where I went into it very open-minded. I was like, what happens, happens. But then I got so confident that I was going to get it. I was so sure of it. Everybody around me kept assuring me, they're like, this is pretty much about to happen. This is going to be happening soon. We just have to wait for some pieces to fall into place, and then basically it's yours. So, of course, I took that and I ran with it. And then I let myself start dreaming about what my life would look like if this opportunity were to land in my lap. I started thinking about the increase in salary and how that would be so beneficial to me, and the bills that, I'd be able to pay off if I got that, and the life I'd be able to live. And for me, I'm really trying to move to a different city soon. So to me, this opportunity was my leverage into moving somewhere and building a different life in a different city. This was getting a new apartment for myself and just up-leveling at work, up-leveling my career, working a different role that would really fulfill me more and give me so much more opportunities to growth. So basically, there were just so many things that were tied to this. It wasn't just about being told, yes, you got this role. It was all the things surrounding it that kept really pulling me in and all the things that I attached myself to. So eventually, you could probably assume where I'm going with this, but after quite a few weeks of waiting and being told, okay, we just gotta wait for some pieces to fall into place, one day I just got that rug pulled up from under me, and basically, it's not even like somebody else got the position. The company just X'd the role altogether and took the role away. So obviously it wasn't available for me to get. I wasn't even able to work towards that position anymore. And it was one of those things where I think I started to sense the rejection coming, and I probably should have prepared myself better, but I tried to stay so hopeful about it. And I think that's just, me and my mindset. I truly believe in manifestation. And if you're familiar with manifestation, it pretty much boils down to just being so confident that the outcome that you want is already yours, that you basically bring that into your reality, or you switch to a timeline where that's already your reality. So I tried to frame my mindset around that. And I tried to spend those few weeks while I was waiting, trying to train my mind to being so sure that the promotion was already mine, that I just would merge into that reality. By this point, after so many weeks of waiting, after being told, the pieces might be falling into place, I became so sure. I was like, you know what? It's already mine. It's already mine, and I already got it. So then one day I got, of course, an automated email saying that, the position was no longer available through my company. Let's be frank, that was a awful feeling. I felt like I got kicked in the gut. It's one of those moments when your stomach just drops and, you're like, holy crap, is this even real? Like, is this, it's one of those moments where you're thinking, is this a nightmare? Am I just dreaming of this happening? Or is this a real email that I'm looking at? And I think that was what made it harder for me too, was it wasn't somebody coming to me and telling me that things changed, that the position was no longer available, that I didn't get it. No, it was just an email. And I had to go back 4 times to even make sure that I was reading it correctly because it was just one of those moments where you think, is my brain tricking me? Is this really happening? So, once again, to be frank, it sucked. It really sucked. It wasn't being able to make that move as sure as I wanted it to be. It was now not being able to up level in my career at work as soon as I would like to. It's not being able to move into that role. It's being less assured as to where I'm going to be able to move in a few months. I know I have a lease ending here in Charleston, and I've really been scrambling to try and figure out options of where I'm going to go and where I'm able to go and get a place for myself. And now it just left me in a period of, well, now I need to scramble and start pulling together more options to be able to figure out where I'm even going to be living in a few months. It was the rejection of the possibility of getting a higher salary that could better support me and, moving off on my own and everything and just starting a new chapter of my life in a few months. So it was a lot more than just being told I didn't get that position. It just left me in this gap of space of confusion and uncertainty of what my life is going to be in a few months, honestly. So that feeling was awful. And once again, it was just one of those moments where you're just left there like, wow, what do I do next? And you just want to kick and scream and yell at the world and be like, why didn't this work out? And so after getting this news, it's not like I was perfect and I was automatically like, oh, this is great. I'm being redirected in life. Of course not. I am human too. I have emotions. And I sat there and I pouted like a little kid for a while. I was like, this sucks. This sucks. I hate the world. My company sucks. I'm so mad at them. They're evil. They're robbing me of this. I took it so personally. I think that's what we all do as well. We jump to the conclusion of it being really personal and thinking, oh, I got rejected. It's about me. I did something wrong, etc., etc. They're coming after me. We make it all about ourselves. Sorry, that was a little bit of a side note there, but I definitely, was in that position where I made it all about me. And I felt so personally rejected by it. And at this time too, I also didn't know that the position got cut. So I really thought, I was like, okay, well, somebody else got it over me. It's a very, personal dagger at me. I took it to such a big extreme. And so I really did sit there and pout about it for a little bit. And I really gave myself the time to be upset about it. I think, honestly, after maybe like 30 minutes or so of me sitting there and pouting, I was like, okay, I need to get my crap together. I need to just get over it, just forget about it and move forward. But honestly, I think we do need to give ourselves the time to let out those emotions, to be frustrated and angry about it. I think that's such an important part of moving past the rejection completely, because I don't think you could reframe your mindset as seeing it as redirection if you're still so angry about it. I think you have to let that emotion out before you can move forward. So after I let out my anger, I definitely ranted to probably some family members about this and got those emotions out. So after that happened, I was able to start reframing my mindset. So I think in these situations, when you are facing that sense of rejection, you have the choice. You could either take it as rejection and just keep being butthurt about it, keep being angry about it, keep yelling at the world and being frustrated about it. You can go ahead and quit on it and just throw your hands in the air and give up completely and just take a step back and just take that rejection and just let it knock you down and let you quit. Or you can look at it differently and you could see the rejection as a form of redirection in life. Instead of letting the rejection get you down so much and letting it make you feel like life is over, you're just done and you failed, you could see that rejection as a form of life leading you towards something else. When things don't work out, you could really think of it as a way of life leading you in a different, better direction. I truly believe you're always being guided, and you are always being guided. I think we see that now, where if we take a look in the past, there are times in our lives where we were rejected and, things didn't work out for a reason. And sometimes it takes a while for that to really come into play and for us to see the results of, something that fell out in the past. But I think we honestly usually come to a time, maybe it's a few months or years down the road, where we take a look and back and say, no, that happened for a reason. That happened for a reason. And that's the reason that I got where I am today, or that something else happened. You met a certain person or a certain opportunity came up after the other rejection redirected you. If we take a moment to think back on some of those situations in life where we were redirected and frame our mindset around that, I think we could really view these points of rejection in our life as an opportunity to move towards something new. I know we've all heard the saying before, but I will say it again because I really use this in my own mindset all the time. But when one door closes, another one opens. And if you truly think like this and truly live your life with this mentality, I think it helps so much when these forms of rejection come up. You could sit there and say, okay, well, that door closed, life sucks, I don't really know what I'm going to do next, and just be so angry about it. Or you could say, okay, that door closed. Well, guess what? Another one just opened. My favorite yet, I always say when one door closes, five more open, because that is the absolute truth. I don't think it's just a one for one deal. I think if one door closes, five new pathways are ahead of you. And if you start thinking like that, you'll start to see the opportunities start coming to you. And I think back to some of the times when I've faced rejection in life and been turned down from things. And when I think back, a lot of these times, shortly afterwards, some of the best things that have come to me in life have come after these forms of rejection or things falling out and things crumpling in life and, not knowing why. There ends up being a golden nugget at the end of the rainbow that comes after that because life just pushes you towards something. Things were falling out for a reason, for something new and bigger to land in its place that couldn't come into your life if you were still in that same situation, that same position that you were beforehand. One thing I always come back to was a few years ago, I had a terrible situation with housing here. I had a house that was severely infested with mold to the point where it was unlivable. And we ended up having to leave our lease, break our lease. And this was right before I was supposed to be going to study abroad. And it was just a crazy situation. I mean, my mental health was at an all-time low, probably the worst it's ever been in my life. I had nowhere to live. I was literally couch surfing, changing housing every 2 weeks. The school granted me housing for 2 weeks was their maximum limit. So they granted me housing in an um in a shared dorm room for 2 weeks, which was just awful being towards the end of college and having to go back into a dorm room for actually the first time for me ever and be in a communal dorm. And then once again, just switching apartments every week, and my life was crazy. I was living out of a storage unit. It was one of the worst experiences I would never wish upon anybody. Regardless, that fell out for a reason, and I saw that a few weeks down the line. Obviously, that experience was terrible, but after I got through it and I got to a period where I was able to move home after the end of the semester happened, and I was able to go on that study abroad, I started to see that actually it happened for a reason. I ended up getting some money back from that situation because we ended up having a lawsuit, a long story. So that money helped me go ahead and fund my study abroad. And also, it saved me so much hassle with having to find a subleaser or so a person to take over my lease at that apartment while I was going to be gone. So, as much as it sucked, it pushed me in a direction where I was able to go on that study abroad, have a clear head, not have to worry about somebody else taking over my lease and that house and everything. And I was able to just start fresh and go live in Italy for 4 months and have the best experiences of my life. So, that's just one example that I always come back to again and again, where things crumple and they crumple for a reason sometimes to push you towards something new, something better. But of course, in these times of rejection, it's not always easy to frame your mindset automatically. It's not. And, it's really hard to move past these things and to move towards a sense of positivity, into a sense of really seeing this as an opportunity to move forward in a different, better direction in life. So, when you're faced with rejection, how do you change your mindset? First off, you have to let yourself acknowledge that the situation sucks. You do, because guess what? The situation does suck. And as we've kind of been leading into so far this episode, you really just need to let those emotions out and let yourself accept that your situation sucks. And I've kind of been in this whole new phase recently where I've just been, if things suck, I let myself address it. I let myself say that. And honestly, it is so freeing to not shove down those emotions and not trying to be so happy, bubbly, and peppy about a situation that is honestly really crappy. So I think it's so great to be able to label these situations as being horrible. That's totally good. And I think that's a great starting point. So let yourself say that it sucks. Let yourself say that and give yourself the time to let your emotions out over the situation. I love to circle back to a Mel Robbins podcast I listened to quite a long while ago. One of her favorite rules is the shitty 5-minute rule, which I think could apply so well here. When one of these situations comes up and you are able to label it as being a crappy situation, you need to give yourself those shitty 5 minutes. And in this case, I think, you deserve more than just 5 minutes. In my case, I took a shitty 2 hours, I think it probably was, where I just pouted on the couch and I let myself have that time. I gave myself the opportunity to be angry about it, to sit there and be upset for 2 hours and just say, you know what, this sucks, the situation sucks, you know, all these people suck for letting this happen, etc. I gave myself the time to do that. Gave myself the time to go rant to my family, my friends about it, to let out my frustrations. And you know what? After those 2 hours were up, I was able to reframe my mindset and readdress the situation. Now that the emotions were out of me, the frustrations were out, I had the mental capacity to sit back and say, okay, yeah, this sucks, but I need to get my shit together and move forward from the situation. And I think you can't go about doing that and reframing that mindset unless you get those frustrations out. You can't just put a band-aid over it, sugarcoat it, and, have that internal frustration about something and just try and cover it up. It's not going to work. You got to let that out, clear out the energy so you could start fresh. So after I gave myself that time, I gave myself the shitty 5 minutes or shitty 2 hours in my case, and started to move forward from that. And I think that's exactly what Mel Robbins talks about with the shitty 5-minute rule, which if you've not listened to that podcast episode, I highly recommend it because that's so great and feeds so well into not only these situations, but also other forms of rejection or frustrations in life. But her rule just basically boils down to you give yourself 5 minutes to complain about something or to be mad about it. And after that 5 minutes is up, it's time to move forward. You can't sit around and complain about a certain situation all day long. That's going to get you nowhere. But you can only really move forward from a situation if you give yourself that time to be annoyed with it. So her rule is give yourself 5 minutes, be angry about it, frustrated about it, and then pull yourself together and move forward in a new direction. So after you do that and you have your 5 minutes, 2 hours, however much time that you need before you can recoup, pull yourself together and move forward, after all that, you need to reframe your mind to truly believe that something better is coming for you. And I truly believe that this is the only way for reframing your mind from rejection to redirection to work, is truly believing that the universe has something better coming for you on the other side of the situation. If you start to frame your mindset around that and truly believe it, you are going to see those new opportunities opening up. You're going to see those opportunities start rising and the energy start changing, not just in you, but in the reality around you. When you trust that something better is coming from the situation, it shows the universe that actually you're ready for something better to come from this. And I think that's so important here. I once again, truly believe in the alignment with the universe and things happening for a reason. And I think sometimes the universe sends us tests. I think the universe tests us on our goals and aspirations to see if we truly want what it is that we're working towards. I think in those moments when the rug gets pulled out from under us, the universe wants to see, are you going to just sit down and just keep lying on the floor and crying about it? Or are you going to pick yourself up, get your legs up off the floor, and start moving forward? And I think if we show the universe and our reality around us that we are strong enough to pick ourselves up, to move forward and be strong in ourselves and around the situation and keep working towards what it is that we want, that's what moves us forward. That's what moves the needle forward to that next direction, okay? This is what opens up the space in your life for more better things to be ushered in and for those things that you're actually working for to start flowing to you. You need to show the universe and the reality around you that you're ready for those things to come in. It's also important to realize that these shifts might not happen overnight. It's not like you're rejected one day, you have your shitty 5 minutes, 2 hours, pull yourself back together and start to reframe your mindset. And the next thing you know, you wake up the next day and, you wake up bright and early in the morning and the universe has a gift box waiting for you of exactly what it is that you really wanted or something better just at your doorstep. That's probably not going to happen. Sometimes it takes weeks, months, maybe even a year down the line. But the time will come when those better opportunities will come to you as long as you have faith that they will. And in order to reframe your mindset, I think it's also so important to realize that things usually don't happen perfectly the first time around. A lot of times we'll have to be rejected multiple times to end up getting the results that we want. You just have to push through that rejection, sometimes multiple times, in order to get those results. Just think about any of the big artists or stars or actors or, big names in the media that you might follow or people you might look up to. Do you really think that they made it on the first time around? Or, do you think that they never got rejected ever in life? Absolutely not. I think we all know that a lot of these people that we look up to, these are the people that probably faced the most rejection in life and just kept pushing past it time and time again to get to where they are today, to become successful. I always say, do you think any of these, pop stars today or big singers, big bands, big artists, big, business owners, do you think they made it on the first time? Do you think that those singers went to go try and sign a record deal and got signed on the spot? Even some of these big artists like Taylor Swift, who became successful very early in life, definitely faced rejection before getting onto their path towards success. I think it's so important to listen to some of these stories because it helps you realize that at the end of the day, not only can this work out for you too, not only can you move past rejection as well to get to your vision of success, but it's also so great and comforting to realize that some of the most famous people in the world face rejection too. So I actually took some time and did some searching and found some great examples of some of the biggest names that we know today and how some of these people faced rejection early on in their careers. So, for example, when Elvis was starting out, he was still a no-name performer, and Jimmy Denny, the manager of the Grand Ole Opry, fired Elvis just after one performance, telling him that he's not going anywhere. And his quote was, "You ain't going nowhere, son. You have to go back to driving a truck." And of course, as we know, Elvis obviously did not take that and quit. He moved forward to be one of the top selling artists of all time. Steve Jobs, who we obviously know today with Apple, was originally fired from Apple, the company he started, before coming back and launching the iPod and the iPhone, and now becoming one of the most wealthy, innovative, and successful business owners in all of history. Michael Jordan was originally cut from his high school basketball team. I thought that was a crazy one. The Beatles were dropped from their original record label, Decca Recording Studios, who they already had 15 songs recorded with. And the record label, Decca Recording, said, "We don't like the sound, the guitar is on the way out, and they have no future in the show business." And all of us today know that that is obviously completely false, and they obviously move forward to become one of the most famous bands in all of history. Oprah was originally told that she was unfit for TV and then became, one of the most influential and successful TV personalities of all time. J.K. Rowling, the writer of the Harry Potter series, one of the most famous book series in history, had her manuscripts for the Harry Potter series rejected multiple times before going ahead and becoming a success. And of course, now we know her books not only became one of the most famous series in history, but they've been created into movies and spin-offs. And she ended up becoming one of the most famous writers of modern history. Even Walt Disney, who was originally fired for a quote unquote lack of creativity, which is crazy, of course, knowing what he's created that has formed into such a big brand and image today. But after hearing all this, the point of the story is that you have to view rejection as redirection to add fuel to your fire and to get you to where you need to go. You can't just let rejection get you down. If you do and you quit, you'll never see the results of your efforts shine through. You're never going to see what's possible if you don't push past that initial sting and to make it to the other side, past that emotional response in you. As we see here, you could take that rejection and just quit. You could step back and quit. And I think any of the examples I just gave you of some of the most famous people in history who were originally rejected or pushed down or told that they couldn't do what it is they dreamed of doing, they could have quit and never became one of the most successful people in history. They could have just quit on the spot and said, you know what, I'm done and I'm not going to try anymore. But they didn't do that, and that's what led them to success. Just think of what if some of these most influential people in history never pushed past their initial rejections? You know, the world would be such a different place. And obviously, when you think of some of the most successful people in history, it's hard to really think of how much that they probably had to push through to get to where they made it today. You know, I think our brain, when we think about some of these influential people in the world, I think we pull apart their success and we don't think about how much they had to put in effort-wise to get there. You know, I think we sometimes forget about how some of these most successful people, they had to go through shit too. They had to push past so many hard times and struggles and rejection and being told that they were not worthy and that they were a failure to get to where they are. So I think it's so important to realize that, because I think it's just so humanizing to realize that these people that we idolize, that we look up to, they're human too. They went through the shit too, just like you and me are day to day. And the only difference is that they kept pushing through. They had a goal in their mind and they didn't step back and quit. They kept pushing through until they saw those results. And I think these examples of success show you that the best things in life, they aren't free. They're not just going to land at your doorstep, but they require your work and, most importantly, your dedication. I listen to this other podcaster who I really look up to and I love her content so much. Her name is Michaela J from the Mindset, Magic, and Manifestation podcast. And she talks about this theory that I absolutely love, which is if you keep working at your goals and you keep dedicating yourself and you keep taking the steps, you cannot fail. And I love this idea because I think it connects so well here, because if you don't give up and you keep working towards your goals, you cannot fail. And I think this is crazy because obviously you could be rejected 5, 10 times and feel like you're not getting somewhere. But you know what? You have to keep thinking, maybe it's that 11th time that you apply for something, you try for something, and that's when you get your yes. And that's when that success happens. So I think if we frame our mindset around this, that if you keep pushing forward and you keep trying, you cannot fail. And one day, it might not be tomorrow, it might be a while down the road, but if you keep putting in the work, one day those results are going to come. So in order to make it and get there, you need to keep pushing past the rejection and know your worth. You need to keep trying, and you can't let initial rejection let you down. You need to use the sense of rejection to guide you in a new direction, to move you forward, to redirect you to where you're meant to be. Always remember in these situations of rejection that there is something better waiting for you, okay? And I believe this for myself and for each and every one of us. In my situation of not getting this promotion, I truly now believe that this is a form of redirecting me into a new direction. And I think I'm starting to see this really as well. I think I'm starting to see pieces fall into place a few weeks after, and after I got past that initial sting of that rejection of not getting the original opportunity that I wanted, I've now been reflecting back and I've started to realize, you know, maybe that wasn't the best opportunity for me. And also maybe I was not ready to take that step. And now I'm starting to see that there might be a new direction opening up for me, at least career-wise. You know, there might be something new coming to me within the next few weeks, few months, and I truly feel that. So I hope you guys can frame your mindset around this as well and truly believe that if you've recently been rejected from something, or if you're still trying to get over a rejection from the past, or if you do end up coming across rejection in the near future, that you can use this mindset to try and see this as a form of, you know, maybe one door closed because something wasn't meant for you, and to see so many new doors and new pathways opening up as a result. We can't take one sense of rejection and keep this from ever applying for something again or putting ourselves out there ever again. Absolutely not. So when we are turned down from things, we need to use this as a way to reframe our mindset to find those things that are meant for us and to move forward in a new, more positive direction. So, guys, I know rejection sucks. I know personally how bad and how sucky rejection can be. But if we choose to reframe our mindset, and no matter what that is, if it's in a job, career, if it's in sports, a relationship, you need to take rejection and reframe your mindset to move forward, see it as redirection, and just see how much life has waiting for you on the other side as long as you change your mindset and believe that the best things are yet to come. Guys, I would love to hear from you after today's episode, and please leave a comment below or go find me on Instagram at the Dream Life Diaries, and please share your stories with me. I want to hear times you guys have faced rejection and have maybe moved past it with this mindset, or those times when maybe things crumbled and fell down and something new landed in its place. Tell me these stories, guys, and I'd love to share them on here as well because I think it's so important to hear these stories of things working out in the end, when one door closes and another one opens. I think it's so important to hear these so we could take that into our own mindset and start to truly believe that the redirection is coming for all of us. Guys, thank you so, so much for listening to today's episode. I really hope that you got something out of it and learned some tips to reframe your mindset to not let rejection bring you down in life, but to use that as fuel to your fire to keep you moving and redirecting you towards success and the results that you deserve. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for listening in, and I'd really appreciate it if you guys could subscribe if you're on YouTube, or go ahead and follow the show if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, and leave a comment below if you are on a platform that allows that, because it definitely helps the show out. And once again, would love to hear from you guys. I always love to hear your feedback and your takeaways from the show, so go ahead and leave them below if you're on Spotify or YouTube. I love you guys so, so much. You can also go ahead and follow on YouTube at the Dream Life Diaries, or go find me on TikTok also at the Dream Life Diaries, which I finally got that handle on there switched from the old show Tell Me When. So we finally have the TikTok in as the Dream Life Diaries as well, which fully completes the rebrand. So go ahead and follow along there, and those links are in the show notes as well. But I hope you guys have the best week. I love you all so, so much, and I'll talk to you all next Wednesday. Bye.